The walls that had withstood centuries of sieges, the bastions that bore the echoes of emperors long gone, trembled under a new sound, the thunderous roar of cannons no one in the known world had ever witnessed. Constantinople, the jewel of Byzantium, the heart of an empire that had survived the collapse of Rome, was about to fall, and the world would never be the same. In 1453, the world was poised on the edge of transformation. At the helm of a meticulously organized and unprecedented army stood a young Sultan, Mehmed II, only 21 years old. Yet, in his gaze burned the fire of ambition, the calculated mind of a master strategist, and the audacity of a conqueror determined to carve his name into the annals of history. Constantinople, the city known as Byzantium to the world, had withstood invasions for more than a millennium. Its Theodosian walls, massive, complex, and nearly impregnable, had turned back countless attackers. For Europe, the city was not merely a fortress, it was a symbol of endurance, faith, and the legacy of the Roman Empire. But for Mehmed, Constantinople represented more than a prize. It was the key to unifying his rapidly expanding empire, a gateway between Asia and Europe, and a center whose capture would not only enrich his coffers but also cement his place as a ruler of unmatched vision and courage. The Ottoman army he commanded was formidable in both size and structure. Tens of thousands of soldiers, engineers, artillery crews, and elite Janissaries stood ready, their loyalty absolute, their training unmatched. At their side, the largest cannons of the age, including the legendary bombard built by the Hungarian engineer Orban, awaited the command that would redefine siege warfare forever. These were not merely weapons. They were instruments of psychological terror, capable of reducing centuries-old fortifications to rubble and breaking the morale of even the most steadfast defenders. The defenders of Constantinople, though few, were resolute. Emperor Constantine XI, aware of the gravity of the moment, personally rallied his citizens and soldiers, preparing them to face what appeared to be an unstoppable force. Venetian and Genoese mercenaries supplemented his ranks, while centuries-old Greek engineers reinforced the walls and towers. Yet, the odds were heavily against them. The defenders numbered only a fraction of Mehmed's forces, and their artillery could not hope to match the power of the Ottoman bombards. Still, the city bristled with determination. Every citizen, soldier, and noble understood that the fate of Christendom might hinge upon their resistance. The siege began in April 1453, and from the first day, Mehmed's brilliance was evident. The Ottomans constructed elaborate siege lines, transported massive artillery across difficult terrain, and positioned their forces with an almost uncanny precision. Night after night, they harried the city, probing its defenses, and launching feints that forced the Byzantines to stretch their already thin lines. The young Sultan himself was present on the battlefield, inspecting fortifications, rallying his commanders, and ensuring discipline remained absolute. His strategic mind considered every angle, logistics, morale, and even the psychological impact of terror upon the defenders. Despite the overwhelming power of Mehmed's forces, Constantinople did not yield easily. The defenders repelled attack after attack, and for a brief period, it seemed that history might favor the Byzantine Empire one final time. Emperor Constantine XI led sorties beyond the walls, personally directing counterattacks, displaying a courage that would become legendary. He moved among his soldiers and citizens alike, inspiring them to fight not merely for survival, but for the honor of their forefathers, the legacy of Rome, and the very soul of their civilization. But the relentless pressure of Mehmed's siege could not be denied. Massive cannonballs began to batter the Theodosian walls, cracks appearing in places that had withstood countless invaders over the centuries. The psychological impact of these weapons, so new, so devastating, was profound. Each thundering shot echoed not only across the land, but in the hearts of the defenders, a reminder that their foe was unlike any they had faced before. Nightly attacks and continuous bombardment eroded morale, while the strategic placement of troops threatened the city from every direction. The Sultan's use of naval forces to blockade the Golden Horn further tightened the noose, preventing any reinforcements or supplies from reaching the beleaguered defenders. As the siege dragged on, a decisive moment approached. On May 29, 1453, after weeks of attrition, A critical weakness in the city's defenses was exploited. The Kirkaporta Gate, a small postern previously thought secure, became the entry point for Mehmed's soldiers. Under the cover of night and using clever distraction tactics, Ottoman forces infiltrated the city, opening the gates to the main army. Chaos erupted. Streets once echoing with centuries of imperial grandeur now rang with the clash of steel, the cries of defender, and the unstoppable advance of the conquering army. Close-quarter combat ensued, with Janissaries and infantry pushing relentlessly, leaving little room for resistance. Emperor Constantine XI, witnessing the collapse of his city, did not flee. Accounts suggest he removed his imperial regalia, joined his remaining soldiers in battle, and perished defending the walls he had sworn to protect. His death symbolized the courage and defiance of a civilization facing the end of an era. Yet, Mehmed's conquest was not an act of wanton destruction. Within days, order was established. Civilians were spared where possible, artisans and scholars were incorporated into the new administration, and the city's wealth was secured. Byzantium was transformed into Istanbul, a city that would serve as the new capital of the Ottoman Empire and a bridge between continents, cultures, and civilizations. The fall of Constantinople reverberated across Europe. The shock was profound. The city, thought impregnable, had succumbed to the firepower and strategy of a young sultan. The balance of power in the Mediterranean and beyond was fundamentally altered. Trade routes shifted, political alliances were reconsidered, and the realization dawned that a new power had arisen, one capable of projecting influence deep into Europe, challenging centuries of Christian dominance. Scholars, diplomats, and monarchs alike attempted to understand the methods behind Mehmed's success, chronicling the siege, the strategies, and the organization of the Ottoman military, which blended elite troops, innovative artillery, and disciplined logistics. But Mehmed's genius extended beyond military tactics. He recognized the importance of governance, loyalty, and integration. Conquered populations were not merely subjugated, they were incorporated. Religious tolerance, skilled administration, and incentives for loyalty ensured that Istanbul would not only survive but thrive under Ottoman rule. The city became a symbol of the empire's potential, a living testament to the vision, audacity, and meticulous planning of a sultan whose name would echo through history. The siege of Constantinople was more than a battle. It was a turning point in world history. It marked the end of the Byzantine Empire, the collapse of the last vestige of the Roman world, and the rise of an empire that would dominate Southeast Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa for centuries. Mehmed II's victory was a masterclass in strategy, combining psychological warfare, innovative artillery use, elite military units, and exceptional leadership. It demonstrated that courage, preparation, and vision could overcome even the mightiest fortifications and the weight of historical legacy. For Europe, the fall of Constantinople was a wake-up call. Trade routes and political alliances were reconsidered, spurring exploration and adaptation. Military tactics evolved as European forces sought to counter the formidable Ottoman armies. Leaders studied the use of artillery, disciplined infantry, and siegecraft. The lessons learned from this siege resonated for generations, influencing battles, campaigns, and the course of empires. Yet, amid the triumph and terror, Mehmed's vision extended beyond conquest. Istanbul became a vibrant center of commerce, culture, and learning. Ancient churches and libraries were preserved, artisans and scholars were welcome, and the city's strategic position was leveraged to control trade between continents. Sultan Mehmed II demonstrated that true conquest required not only military might, but also governance, cultural integration, and foresight. The day Constantinople fell reminds us of the impermanence of even the mightiest powers, the brilliance of audacious leaders, and the transformative impact of human ambition. It was a story of walls shattered, empires ended, and a new era beginning, an era that reshaped continents, trade, culture, and the very course of history. It was the story of a young sultan whose vision, courage, and strategy left an indelible mark on the world, and whose echoes continue to resonate across the centuries. If you are captivated by empires, battles, and the timeless stories of leaders who shaped the world, subscribe to Echoes of Empires. Join us as we journey through history's greatest moments, told with the power, respect, and grandeur they deserve.